Welcome. Today we're jumping into the latest from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thunderbolts. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jane. Good to be here.
So, Thunderbolts. The premise is, well, interesting. You've got a world without the Avengers, a new threat pops up, and who steps in?
Not the usual heroes, that's for sure. It's this collection of MCU dropouts, anti-heroes.
Right. Basically, a team nobody asked for, reluctantly pulled together.
It definitely gives off, like, Marvel's answer to Suicide Squad vibes, you know?
Totally. It feels darker, maybe more espionage-focused than your typical Marvel flick.
Yeah, but you still feel the MCU framework there. It's familiar ground in some ways.
So let's dig into it. What worked? What maybe didn't hit the mark?
And does it feel, I don't know, fresh? Or is it more the same Marvel pattern?
Exactly. Let's start with the core. I think the team itself, this group of difficult personalities.
Yeah, the way they're forced together, that's a huge part of it. Strong characters, often pretty unlikable, honestly.
And they don't just click, do they? There's that initial friction, the clashing egos and backstories.
Oh, absolutely not. The synergy is lacking at first. Lots of petty conflict.
You spend the first part wondering how they'll possibly function as a unit.
But then survival kind of kicks in, right? They have this common threat, and suddenly it's cooperate or, well, don't make it.
And that shared danger, that need to just get through it, starts to build something.
Even if it's reluctant teamwork at best, it grows from just surviving maybe into something bigger.
Though you could argue there are some maybe plot conveniences in how they initially come together, and that search for the power source.
Yeah, the setup has a few moments that feel a bit neat, but it gets the team moving.
Okay, let's talk individuals. We have to talk about Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova.
Oh, absolutely. She's like the undeniable star here, isn't she?
Seems like it. The emotional anchor, you could say, carries a lot of the weight.
Definitely. Her whole arc dealing with her past pain, that's a major theme. Pugh really delivers that.
It makes you think, is this almost Black Widow too? With Yelena stepping into that lead role.
It's a fair comparison. She's clearly the protagonist, stepping into Natasha's shoes in a way.
And with Scarlett Johansson as an executive producer.
Yeah.
Feels like a deliberate passing of the baton.
Yeah, you can see that. Establishing Yelena further in the MCU makes sense.
Now, what about the tone? Specifically, the humor. It's Marvel, so there's humor, but...
Right. But does it always fit with this darker, maybe grittier feel they seem to be aiming for?
That's the question. Does the classic MCU quippiness sometimes feel, I don't know, out of place?
Some reactions suggest, yeah, it can clash a bit. That tonal balance is tricky.
Although people seem to agree on David Harbour's Red Guardian.
Oh, yeah. He seems to consistently land the humor.
Because it feels character-driven, right? It comes from him, not just random jokes thrown in.
Exactly. It's effective comic relief. But it highlights that tension you mentioned. The film wants to be this gritty spy thing.
And then throws in something more cartoonish.
Kind of, or comedy beats that just feel slightly off. Some people even felt Valentina's dialogue.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character.
Yeah, that her lines could have almost been written for someone in a straight-up comedy. It's an odd fit sometimes.
Okay, let's shift to action. Always a big part of these films. How does Thunderbolt stack up?
Generally pretty well, actually. The action sequences are described as fun, well-done moments of that, old-school Marvel magic.
Good, but... I feel a butt coming.
But the third act, there's a feeling that it's missing something big.
The big finale action sequence. It's not there.
Apparently not in the way you'd expect. The smaller sequences build and build.
And then it just fizzles.
It leaves you wanting more, maybe? Like the payoff doesn't quite match the setup. Which can feel a bit unsatisfying.
Okay. And any dodgy CGI moments? That seems to be a recurring thing lately.
There's mention of at least one sequence where the effects are noticeable, yeah. It's still an issue sometimes.
Right. So beyond Yelena getting the spotlight, how's the rest of the team looking, character-wise?
Well, the dynamic between Red Guardian and Bucky seems to develop nicely, adds to that team cohesion. And U.S. Agent, surprisingly, is getting praise for being well-written. Adding something interesting to the mix.
That's good to hear. But who gets left out? There's always someone.
Seems like Ghost might be a bit sidelined. Which is a shame. Her powers are potentially really cool visually.
Yeah, missed opportunity there. What about Bucky? James Buchanan Barnes.
That's another point of contention. He apparently doesn't get a signature Bucky action scene.
Really? After all this time?
Yeah, and considering his history, his power set, for him to not make a big impact against a major threat, it feels a bit like a disservice to the character.
Okay. And then there's the big new addition, Sentry.
Yes. The reactions to him are intense.
In a good way.
Very good, apparently. His one big scene is being called incredible, like worth the ticket price alone.
Wow, okay. What makes it so good?
Sounds like he's very comics accurate, incredibly powerful, looks amazing visually.
One scene, though. You said one scene.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's apparently a really clever use of his powers within that scene.
But just one, for a character that powerful.
It raises questions, definitely.
Yeah.
Introducing someone that OP&K, where does he go from here in the MCU?
Right. Big implications. Any comparisons being made?
Interestingly, yeah. To Homelander from The Boys.
Yeah.
In terms of the look, the sound, that kind of unnerving power.
That is a striking comparison.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the villain? Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. She steps out of the shadows.
She does. She's not just pulling strings anymore. She's front and center as a genuine threat.
And how does she work as the antagonist?
Pretty effectively, it seems. A fantastic foil for Yelena, apparently. Ruthless, damaged, but still human, engaging.
Okay, that sounds promising. And interestingly, I've heard the film tackles mental health themes quite directly.
That's right. It's a notable element, handled in a way that feels organic, accessible, maybe particularly for Gen Z viewers.
So it's not just surface level.
No, it
Well-
seems like these character conversations, exploring their issues, sometimes even take the place of big action beats. That feelings over fighting idea someone mentioned.
Interesting choice. Now, the ending. Always crucial. And post-credit scenes, of course.
Yeah.
It's Marvel.
Right. The end in itself sounds like it's conceptually heavy, a big idea, but maybe doesn't quite land. A bit anticlimactic.
Uh-oh. But the post-credits, how many?
2. First one is apparently just a little chuckle, a fun moment.
Okay. In the second.
The second one is significant, major MCU implications.
Sets up the future then. Doesn't really wrap this story up.
Pretty much. It sounds like it contains stuff that maybe should have been in the third act, or at least sets up a direct sequel or another project very clearly.
So it leaves you hanging.
A bit. And that criticism comes up again, putting crucial plot or setup in a tiny scene after the credits feels rushed, like a promise for later instead of a satisfying end now.
Yeah, that's a familiar Marvel playbook issue, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Seems to be the case here, too.
So, putting it all together, overall assessment. What's the takeaway on Thunderbolts?
I mean, it sounds like a fun watch, great cast, the character dynamics seem genuinely entertaining, but it's got some of those familiar MCU problems. The tone might be a bit uneven, the ending might not satisfy everyone, and it feels very much like set up for what's next.
More concerned with the future than the present film.
That seems to be the prevailing feeling. It doesn't quite stick the landing as a fully self-contained story, maybe?
So, despite the flaws, still worth seeing in cinemas.
I'd say probably yes, especially if you're invested in Yelena or you like that anti-hero team vibe. The performances and the chemistry seem to be real strengths.
Okay, so final thoughts for everyone listening.
Well, Thunderbolts definitely try something a bit different for the MCU. That darker tone, the focus on these flawed characters. But yeah, it's a mixed bag.
You've got strong performances, especially Pugh and Harbor, some fun interactions.
But then you have that missing big action finale, the tonal wobbles, and that feeling it's mostly about teeing up the next thing.
Right, so I guess the question for you, the listener, is, do those strong characters and the potential for the future make up for the film's weaknesses right now?
Is this a new direction for Marvel? Something genuinely fresh? Or just the same formula with slightly different ingredients?
Let us know what you think when you see it. We'd love to hear your reaction.